Hello, everyone. Welcome to Lehigh Center for Career and Professional Development Alumni Panel Series. This is our first time with the series, and you're here for our third panel. And my name is Logan Haverkamp, and I'll be serving as one of the student moderators today.
Hi there, my name is Piper Krill. I'm helping moderate with Logan. I'm super excited to have this panel, and then I think we'll just start it off with our alumni here. If you would just like to briefly introduce yourself and share about your current role. Taryn, if you want to start us off.
Hi everyone, I'm Taryn Crane. I graduated from Lehigh in 2012 with a degree in industrial engineering. I began my career at IBM, where I was in the consulting business. I focused on things like data analytics, building data marts and data warehousing, primarily to support financial services organizations with regulatory reporting. And about 8 years ago, I joined my current company called BDO in their data and information governance practice. And I've developed a specialty in data privacy and cybersecurity services. So I currently lead a practice dedicated to cyber and privacy risk and compliance services. And I help large global organizations build programs that both enable the business, but also meet regulatory obligations and consumer expectations, both here in the US and abroad. Great to be here.
Thank you so much. JP, if you would like to go next.
Hi, yes, I was a mechanical engineering major from Lehigh, class 2023. During my time at Lehigh, I was part of the rowing team and the orchestra outside of classes. I also received minors in aerospace and energy engineering with the ME electives. And I now work at Amazon Web Services as a mechanical data center design engineer. I work on a team called FRE, which stands for Fleet Remediation Engineering, the fleet being the active data centers. So I work in the Virginia area on remediation efforts to increase safety, availability, also known as uptime, and capacity, which is the big name of the game these days between Amazon, Meta, Microsoft. Um, so my typical day to day is in an Amazon office by the Dulles Airport, but also on site in data centers when we work through the steps of the program, going all the way from feasibility, design walkthroughs, and construction support. It's a great opportunity to see programs end to end. We also work with many partner teams like our design engineering team who own the basis of design or the new data center designs as AI forces us deeper into liquid cooling space, which is starting to trickle into my field as those become existing builds rather than just the new theoretical build types. And one other team that we work with that's very notable is the field engineering team, who I like to call the firefighters of our team. They run our root cause analysis with any issue that arises, and then it becomes FRE's job to make sure that those fires do not occur in any other sites in the future.
Very cool. Colin, you want to go next?
Hello, everyone. My name is Colin Wolfbader. I graduated Lehigh in 2017 undergrad with mechanical engineering and 2019 for mechanical engineering as well. My first job was at a small company called New Hudson Facades, located just south of Philadelphia, where I started off as a modeler and then quickly kind of changed roles into a um, thermal building physics engineer, where I was doing thermal analysis. In 2023, my wife and I moved cross country out to Seattle, where we currently live, and I started working at Boeing. I support both the 777 and 767 programs. I'm a 777 and 767 nacelle DE or design engineer. Yeah.
That's awesome. Melissa, we have you next.
Yep. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. My name is Melissa Feeney. I graduated undergrad from Lehigh in 2016 and I actually was in the business school and studied marketing. While I was at Lehigh, I was on the swim team. Um, and I really found out about data science my senior year and also through many conversations with Karen in Career Services. I started working in a data science role at PVH. I was there for about 8 years. PVH is the parent company of Calvin Klein and Tommy Hilfiger. So I've always been in the retail and apparel space. I returned to graduate school while I was working at PVH and got my master's degree in data science from Columbia. After which I decided to pursue a new opportunity as head of data science at my current company, which is called Roller Rabbit. Some of you may know us from TikTok and Instagram for pajamas, but I lead the data science function there, where I'm responsible for things like, shaping the department priorities, doing historical reporting on things like customer productivity, designing inventory optimization algorithms, and doing a variety of different forecasting. So,
That's great. We're happy to have you here. And then Alex, you want to go next?
Thanks. Yes, my name is Alex Carr, and I graduated from Lehigh in 2022 with bachelor's degrees in computer engineering and finance. And then I ended up staying my fifth year to get my master's in computer engineering. Right after graduating, I started at Cisco, where I've been working the last 2.5 years. I work on the Cisco Hypershield product, which is a security firewall, which we call a smart switch. And so it's a lot of network security. And I work as a software engineer developing the packet processing on the switch. Am originally from Westchester, Pennsylvania, and now work and live in San Francisco. Nice to meet you all.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And then just moving forward with your career experiences, we want to hear a little bit about what early career experiences helped you to figure out what career path you liked best. Sorry, JP, if you want to start us off.
Yeah, absolutely. So I did two internships before I had my internship at Amazon, one at Johnson Controls or JCI, and another at a company called IRF. At JCI, I was a test engineer who essentially stress tested chillers and air handling units that were on the production line to be used in meta data centers. And this experience gave me, I think, the resume item and the experience to get the data center internship at Amazon between my junior and senior years. Um, the job at JCI was cool because I got to set up all the instrumentation on the units and then transfer them into rooms that could be temperature controlled between -20 degrees Fahrenheit and 120 degrees Fahrenheit, and we essentially tested their operation under extreme weather conditions. So this experience gave me a lot of really hands-on experience, and that kind of reinforced why I loved engineering. But even after I did that, I wasn't so sure data centers were my passion. And then even after I got the return offer from Amazon, I wasn't so sure data centers were my passion. And then even after a year at Amazon, I wasn't so sure that I wanted to stay in the field. But because of that, I started working on a master's in aerospace engineering in 2024. But now after 3 years at Amazon, I would say I've gotten kind of the hang of things. The imposter syndrome has gone away. And I don't necessarily see myself leaving the space in the near future. I'd say I'm still in my early career, of course, only being 3 years in, and I'm still figuring out what my career path looks like. But I think every day is a bit of a learning experience. Just staying open to opportunities and staying in tune with what you like or dislike about any job experience you have will kind of take you in the right direction.
Sure. Thank you for sharing. Next, we're gonna go to Colin.
Yeah. I kind of like to build off of kind of what JP was saying, especially like making sure you identify what positive and negative career experiences you've had and like making sure you understand what those are, because those are fundamental for making you who you are. For me, I tried to engage with as many individuals across the company as I could when I first started. So this was at New Hudson or at Boeing, just trying to understand what everyone does, how everyone fits together as a team, and then using that to almost guide myself on how I wanted to further my career. Because right now I am in a more technical role, but I have always wanted to potentially pursue a managerial role, and I'm still trying to figure that out. Right, that's a process that hasn't gone away after 10 years of working. Because there's always new opportunities that can present themselves. So keep yourself open to changes and opportunities, especially if you have opportunities to jump into like small side projects, whether that's with your organization or helping out a parallel organization. You're going to learn so much more than your standard statement of work would provide.
That's great. That was really good advice about continuing to explore and things like that. Next, we're going to have Melissa.
Yeah. So I had a little bit of an interesting or unique background. So when I was started at Lehigh, I was a biochem major. Thought I wanted to pursue medicine. Always thought of myself kind of thinking like scientist, and following kind of like that scientific mindset. And really had to make a decision about halfway through for a variety of reasons. It just wasn't the right fit for me. So I spent a lot of time actually after my sophomore year at Lehigh with Karen talking to her to figure out what was it that I really liked from the physical sciences world, and how could I apply that somewhere else? So going through that experience that summer, I almost call it like a soul searching experience, was so helpful in helping me to understand what my core competencies were, which was working with data, doing experiments, drawing conclusions, figuring out how to iterate for the next time, and really seeing where that might fit in the business world. And that's kind of how we landed on data science. And I tried to, throughout the end of my time at Lehigh, kind of really take like an analytical approach to business and marketing. So I would just say, I mean, it was those conversations and the time I spent working with career services was really, really helpful. And I really, suggest if anyone is doubtful or kind of uncertain of where their core competencies and skills may lend themselves best to have that conversation.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Next, we're going to move to Alex.
Yeah, thanks. And like Melissa was saying, I think the resources that are available to you at Lehigh or in college are super valuable. For me, there was a program called Lehigh Silicon Valley. It's still around if you guys are interested in the technology space, where we had an opportunity to meet with a lot of professionals in the software engineering and technology and different careers associated with that subject area. And it was a really cool opportunity for me to kind of see how different people have gone about their career paths and ask questions and kind of got to see um, if I could envision myself in their roles and doing their job, which really helped me kind of figure out what I wanted to do and what I wanted to focus on after college. And Lehigh Silicon Valley is not the only program like that. There's tons of them at Lehigh, and so there's tons of opportunities to kind of get a good idea or to get a taste of what different careers would look like before you graduate college.
Yeah, I think it's definitely so important. Take advantage of these great opportunities here at Lehigh. And then last, we're going to have Taryn here.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say I'm so impressed by all my co-panelists, but also everyone who's listening today because I never did anything like this when I was at Lehigh, and I did not take much advantage of the Career Center, and I think you really should. There's so much opportunity in learning all of this about what people are doing. I just thought, stick to my courses and my grades, and that would get me where I need to go. But I really started getting the experience and opportunities when I started at IBM. um, Back then, they had something called Consulting by Degrees program. I don't know if they still do it, but this program was, entry-level consultants. They rotate through different projects and practices over a 2-year span before, converting into one of the practices within the consulting business. And that gave me so much exposure to different work and skill sets. And one project, I was a project manager on a major, middle and back office transformation for a hedge fund. The next, I was learning how to do source to target data mapping to migrate legacy COBOL data structures. You guys probably don't even know what that is, to like modern data warehouses for an insurance company. Another, I was creating data marts for reporting on Dodd-Frank Act. So I got so much different, like diverse experience. And so, my biggest advice is just to say yes to every opportunity that you can. A lot along the lines of, I think, what Colin was saying earlier, like explore everything you can in your organization, be a sponge on every learning experience, because as a result of all of those experiences for me, I realized that I loved sitting at this intersection of the business, technology, and even now legal stakeholders because I can clarify requirements and help to operationalize, within the business, within technology, and almost act as that bridge between each of those. And so, this blend of collaboration and problem solving has really driven my passion for where I live in the consulting space and specifically within, data privacy.
Yeah, I think that that's really great advice. And your point about being a sponge is like one of the most important things that we as students can do when in college, just to learn like as much as we can and take in as much information from as many people as we can. I think that that's really great advice. So we're going to move on to our next question, which is going to be what sort of internships or experiential learning opportunities would you suggest students take advantage of to gain experience in your field? I know some of you guys have already kind of mentioned some of the things that you've done, but just kind of to reiterate, we'll start with you, Colin. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'd say one thing you could do if internships are potentially not working out. Like for myself, I never was able to actually land an internship while at Lehigh, but I was heavily involved with Formula SAE. Having that sort of, I guess, extracurricular experience really helped, one, root some of the fundamentals I was learning in class, but also it always seemed to be a great talking point when I was in interviews. So I'd say any clubs or organizations you can join. I know there's an aerospace club, FSAE, Baja, also organizations like SWE. Use these for growing your network. And any industry experience as well. Like if you are able to land an internship maybe outside of the industry that you were looking at, like that is also perfectly fine because it's just starting to learn how things work in, I guess I would say industry. I'm going to keep saying industry a lot versus academia, right? Boeing offers many internships, and so you might not be able to land one in design engineering or quality engineering like you're expecting, but if you're able to at least land some position and get your foot in the door, you can start having those conversations once you're inside the company to then explore other opportunities. So, yeah.
I think that's probably nice to hear for a lot of students that one internship isn't the end all be all, and it's definitely good to experience as much as possible. Next, we'll have Melissa.
I think coming from an industry like retail, which is in relation to data science is very nascent. I think a lot of companies in the industry in general are really just beginning to understand the possibilities of working with data scientists and really understanding how to improve businesses using them. So I think that honestly, if you're looking to get into retail, I would say first of all, learn how the business works. It's really valuable to understand, especially in an industry where this kind of technical field is not widely popular, or I should say, is not super prevalent. It's really helpful to understand how these businesses work. So, for example, we have a design team, we have merchandising teams, we have planning teams. So, figuring out how each of those work, and then kind of as a data scientist, where your part can fit in is really helpful. And I also think, just as an aside, I think when I've looked at resumes, especially of young people applying, things that stand out to me really are like personal projects. I think that, as mentioned, I mean, internships, amazing if you can get them, but I think really having like that drive of and curiosity to do things kind of on your own, whether that be through Kaggle or just through things you're seeing online, that really always impresses me and really makes me think very highly of the applicant. So, um,
Thank you for sharing, Melissa. Next, we're going to go to Alex.
Yeah, and kind of building off of what Melissa said about personal projects, I feel like specifically in software engineering, where we're hiring mostly from is personal projects are a really, really good opportunity to kind of one, express what you're interested in. There's so many different parts of um, or aspects of coding and software engineering that you can be interested in, whether that's security or networking or um, front end development or other different categories. And a personal project really lets you express those interests and kind of show what you know. But it's also a really great opportunity to learn industry tools. I feel like software engineering is one of the few industries where the a lot of the tools that most companies are using for like industry level or um, commercial level products are available to everyday consumers. So a lot of open source tools, whether that's Kubernetes or different programming languages, they're all available for you to try for free. And so it's a really good opportunity to become proficient in those different tools. And you can then show that proficiency in interviews and use it in your job as well. And so it's very accessible and a great way to kind of expand on your capabilities on your own time.
Yeah, thank you so much, Alec, about how that really fits in specifically with software engineering. And then we'll have Taryn up next here.
Yeah, so like I said earlier, take on any internship you can get, any experiential learning. As I mentioned earlier, I didn't get an internship till after my junior year, but I'm, increasingly amazed by the resumes I get on my desk with kids starting as early as even high school these days. So, um, get those internships, reach out to people at organizations, learn more, take advantage of, adjunct professors or other people who come on campus to teach certain courses and dedicate their time to doing that. One, they're volunteering their time in probably a very busy schedule, but they're also offering you that opportunity to learn from them in the real world and potentially do those special projects with them. So, I always say get yourself out there, making yourself known, creating a strong network. Confidence is always something to have, and I don't mean, arrogance, but, confidence to ask questions, be curious. Those are the types of things that people want to see. And so don't downplay the people aspect of all of this. The more genuine you are with, speaking to people with your work and your broader experience, the more you'll stand out when you're entering into the workforce.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. I think Colin also agrees. I any experience is good experience when looking at like the professional space, and so just taking on anything he can get is really great advice. For we'll move on to JP for this question as well. I know you already shared that you worked for Johnson Controls on your internship, so kind of beyond that, if there was any sort of experiential learning opportunities that you'd like to share beyond that.
Yeah, I think I didn't take advantage of this at Lehigh, but I know research programs now that I've seen kind of people come in into the entry level fields. The research programs at Lehigh are extensive, and I think that a lot of professors are more willing to have more and more students on their programs than students know. And if you just go ask your professors of your favorite courses if they have anything that they could kind of like further your education outside of just the normal classroom, it would be huge. I also think there's a lot of programs out there that you just don't hear about until you're in the professional space. Data center cooling is basically just big advanced HVAC. So in my field, it's like once I got there, I had employees tell me about ASHRAE, which is kind of like the standard of all HVAC. They set all of the accepted rules. I was told to go take different trainings that are supplied by some of the big HVAC manufacturers like the Train HVAC Clinic, and there's things I had never heard of because they're not kind of classroom topics. I was also told to take the fundamentals and engineering exam as soon as I got out of school, which I unfortunately did not and had to do a lot of back studying for. So if you plan on doing anything that involves design where you might want to end up having to stamp drawings that were going to go in for permits and such like things like that, like any mechanical engineering or civil engineering, that's huge for. So it's just a lot of those little things that you get told really early in your career, and you might not necessarily like pick up as, oh, that's important, even though it wasn't part of school. So if you kind of have an inkling of where you want to go, just do a little research into like what are the industry standards, not just the classroom standards.
Yeah, I think that's super useful information. It sounds like we heard from everyone. It's just most important to get any experience you can outside of the classroom. It's always the best kind. And then for our next question, we're having how is AI, automation, or emerging technology changing your field right now? And what should students really be paying attention to in that area? And we'll start with Melissa.
So coming from a field that is obviously very coding heavy, as data science, AI is changing a lot of the ways in which we work. So, being the best coder possible is maybe in data science not the biggest marker of success anymore. I think it's a lot more about conceptual understanding of math and statistics and the different models and problem structures that we consider. So things, I mean, we're using things like Cursor, Claude Code, and all sorts of things. I'm sure that other people on this call are using the same kinds of things. And yeah, it's really transformed a lot of things. I mean, when I was first starting out, I remember it was super critical to be the best coder. And, technical interviews were all about, how could you code under pressure when someone was watching you and that sort of thing. And now things are kind of changing, at least from my perspective and the experiences that I've had. So definitely, use these tools to your advantage. I always feel like it's a double-edged sword because while they can make us very productive, I think that they shouldn't necessarily inhibit the understanding of the material and kind of the structure of the code. So it is a difficult balance to strike. And I recognize, especially as people just starting out, it can be really tempting to just have AI write all your code for you. But I think that it is quite important to have that understanding of what's going on conceptually.
Yeah, and in terms of like what's going on in industry, it can be hard as students to really figure that out without having a network like people like yourself. And so just encouraging people to really reach out to the network and ask the questions. And also to that subject, please be asking questions throughout this. You can throw them in the chat. Just whenever you think of them to all of our participants here today. So we'll keep moving on with this question, and next we will go to Alex.
Yeah, in another code heavy role, AI has had a pretty large impact on my daily life. I would say most of the code that I'm writing and have been writing over the last like 6 months or so is either AI assisted or were written with AI using a lot of the same tools that Melissa mentioned. And it's changed a lot of the workflow, but I think for me at least, it's been a productive change. It allows me to kind of focus on the design and the problem solving aspect, which I enjoy a lot more than just writing code and dealing with bugs. But it is still very important to have that conceptual understanding. If you run into issues, if you don't understand what's happening, they become much harder to solve. But like I was saying earlier, a lot of the AI tools that Melissa mentioned, with Claude or Codex or Cursor or anything like that, they're available for you to use and try for free or for cheap if you want to pay for them. So there's plenty of opportunities for you to learn and become familiar with them. And we started using like allowing AI use in interviews as well. So like it's an expected skill that people will start to have in software.
That's super interesting to hear. Thank you so much. And then next we'll hear from Taryn, if you can talk about your experience with it as a managing director.
Yeah, this is one of the hottest topics going on right now in the industry, and definitely in the consulting space. I will start with my plug. I am a privacy professional, so I would be remiss not to disclaim that you should be using AI safely and responsibly. I do lead the AI governance practice here at BDO, and that is a very important part, as we've heard Melissa and Alex both say, kind of that human in the loop aspect and making sure that you're reviewing and verifying the information that comes out of AI is incredibly important. But it's definitely going to change a lot of the ways that we work. So there's a lot of discussion around how it's going to impact organizational structures. A lot of what AI can do are some of those more entry level aspects of a role. But in order to reach a level like what Alex and Melissa are doing and reviewing the outputs, you need experience. So a lot of organizations are kind of struggling with how to both train people and get them the subject matter experience to be able to manage agentic workflows while also using AI to create those efficiencies and, get plugged into those types of activities. So, my suggestion for everyone here is use AI as much as you can, whether that's in a personal capacity, school, work, whatever policy allows, of course. But the more fluent and literate you can be in AI, the more you can be instrumental in using it in the way that you work and also contributing to the way that it's used within an organization. You'll be able to contribute ideas, thought leadership, demonstrate your work is not replaceable. Um, and honestly, a lot of people are talking about your generation as ones that might come in with some of the best ideas because you've grown up with technology. We didn't even have Instagram when I was in college. Like, there's a whole like group of people who are, growing up with technology having been part of your entire life. And so I think it's going to be really important. And you guys are maybe going to change the way some of this stuff works as you enter the workforce. So I'm excited for it.
Yeah, that's really interesting to hear. And it sounds like, AI is not necessarily this evil thing that we need to avoid at all costs, but more so how do we be intentional about this and how do we discuss it in an interview setting and how can we be utilizing it to better ourselves in the workplace. Next we will go to JP.
Yeah, I mean, just like everybody else, it sounds like everyone agrees that AI is a tool. I mean, we have AI tools specifically for asking HR questions, for going through design documents and just like finding the information we need. And it saves us hours and hours and hours of that busy admin work. I know that the big thing is like AI is replacing us, but really it's just making us more efficient, you know. It's actually gotten to the point and it's really weird and I can't believe we're here, but if I don't use AI, my manager asks me why. Like they are actually tracking the number of queries I input every week, and they're like, "Why did you not use our chatbots this week? Like they will help you work faster." But I know that a lot of the people I work with are having to get used to that. You know, they've been there for 10 years and they kind of have their process and they're being forced to change that process, but it's making them faster. Um, so it's not something to be worried about necessarily. I know that a lot of people kind of present it that way, but it really is just making everybody a little better at their jobs. Obviously, in my field too, it's kind of changing the way that a lot of things work, right? Data centers are changing with AI, but with new issues comes new innovation opportunity. So as power and cooling become a bottleneck, it's just giving people the opportunity to solve new problems. So I try to look at it that way. You know, it helps us. It is scary to a lot of people, and I know that the constant thing I see is it's taking the jobs, but it is allowing us to be more efficient.
That's super interesting, firsthand experience. I don't know if I've ever heard that before about them tracking the queries, but it sounds like it's really speeding things up and can be super helpful. So thank you so much for that. And then we'll just finish off this question with Colin.
Yeah. I actually don't use AI that much at work. I use it a lot for assisting in my technical writing. That's kind of our big push at our company. We were not allowed to use any external AI resources, so we actually, I guess, developed our own. I'm not involved with that at all, but we have our own internal Boeing AI system that we use. Yeah, again, my main use is for technical writing. One thing I'd say is it is a fantastic resource to use, but it is important not to replace AI with your understandings of the fundamentals. I feel like that's really been expressed a lot here by everyone is like to understand why it's giving you a certain answer is critical. You don't want to just go blindly following something and then end up in a situation where at the end of your project, you don't necessarily understand why that decision was made, and maybe you totally missed something. So it is one thing to be aware of. So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for your perspective. Next, we're going to move to what technical or data tools do you use most often, and what level of mastery is actually expected in entry-level roles? So I know we've talked a lot about AI. Kind of what other things should we all be aware of? We'll start with you, Alex.
Yeah, so at a large company like Cisco, there's a ton of internal things that Cisco's kind of developed for ourselves, especially in the networking space, which Cisco is a leader in. So those types of things, unless you've like worked at Cisco before, it's really hard to gain experience in them. But there are other ways that you can kind of prepare, specifically in like software engineering or coding roles. Um, Being able to understand one language really, really well, whether that's Python or Java or C or C++ plus plus or Go, it doesn't really matter because I think at least once you really understand one language, how it works, how it interacts with uh, the computer, the underlying system, it translates and translates very easily to a bunch of other languages. And so it's very easy to pick those up. And so just trying to pick something and use it as your main programming language is a great way to get started. And then also, I think the most important thing is just a passion for learning. I think when I'm looking at candidates, like when we do interviews or when we're hiring, um, and it's important that the candidate has a general knowledge of the field or what they're going to be working on. But I think the most important thing is a passion for learning, being able to problem solve and learn quickly and figure things out when you don't know them, I think is incredibly important, more than knowing something when you start. So just being passionate and excited to learn and problem solve and figure out new things, I think is more important and than being an expert or a master at something as well. So
Yeah, that definitely makes sense for a lot of us students. You can't be expected to be a master already, and things are changing so much nowadays, definitely to always be learning. And then next, we'll hear from Taryn.
Yeah, so a lot of my day to day, as boring as it sounds, is Excel spreadsheets and PowerPoints. There's often a joke that management consultants really just make pretty PowerPoints, and I swear we do more than that. But increasingly, my day is starting to adapt to more of these enterprise AI tools that we've been discussing here and how, I use them just to make more efficiency in my day to day. People on my team, we're dabbling in things like UiPath to create certain workflows, to supplement and automate the work that we are doing on some of our projects. But we have tools for purpose. So, when we're working with our clients, we're implementing certain tools and technologies that are configured for cyber or privacy needs. And so with that said, at the entry level, up until recently, people weren't really studying data privacy. Cyber is kind of out there, obviously. But I don't usually expect my team, at least my entry level people, to have those skills immediately. The hard skills, at least. What I'm usually looking for are people, as Alex said, are like self-starters, proactive, asking thoughtful questions, demonstrating genuine interest in the work. Because those are the qualities that I can't teach, but I can always teach the hard skills. So, again, be curious.
Thank you for sharing. Next, we'll go to JP.
Yeah, a couple of the tools that I use, obviously Excel all the time. Bluebeam or Revit is one of the drawing tools we use. Sometimes AutoCAD, but from my experience, the entry level roles do not expect mastery by any means. I've shadowed in multiple interviews for entry level positions and in intern positions with my manager, and he's told me that he's never really looking for those kind of skills. It's more of the drive to learn, the ability to do research and learn new tools and solve problems on their own. But of course, on their own can still mean knowing what questions to ask, right? We, as engineers, we're teammates. That's the whole point of what we do, right? We're never isolated. And I just think that, like everyone else is going to say, enthusiasm and curiosity is much more important than any type of skill mastery in terms of those tools or packages. Every job is going to be different, and you just can't prepare for all of those types of things. So just being willing.
Thank you so much, JP. And then next, we'll have Colin with your experience with these technical and data tools.
Yeah. Again, a lot of Excel, Word, PowerPoint. We use CATIA, Inovia, SolidWorks, Inventor, Vault, all of these. Love them. I was never expected to fully understand exactly where every single button was, every single function was in the software. A big thing that I've noticed, the first company I worked at was a really small company, and so we didn't have a lot of internal training. It was a lot of learn on the job, shadow a lot of people. And as a lot of people have stated here, it was more having the desire to learn, right? Learn with what experience you can gather, but also having an idea of where you wanted to take a project. So, uh, But something you might also look at if you join a larger company, they might have training. Like Boeing has just thousands of courses to take. It's mind-boggling, and I can take any sort of software training I'd like, and at any level, they have a ton. So, just it getting into it, expectations for entry level is just have an idea of what you want to accomplish, and then ask questions on how to adapt or use the software to solve that problem. Just remember, everyone had to start from somewhere. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. And lastly, we'll go to Melissa.
So I'm going to echo what a lot of people have said, but as an entry level person, you are in no way or shape or form expected to be an expert on any kind of tool, especially since different companies kind of use different tools and have different preferences towards things. But things that I use every day, I'm writing in Python mostly every day. I've used a little bit of R. That was more in the beginning of my career. SQL. So it's really important to understand how to interact with databases and kind of have an understanding of database structure, because all of the data that I'm querying every single day is basically customer data, and tables of different orders and considering different line items and stuff in people's orders. So understanding how to work with databases is very important. My last company used Databricks, which is and we use PySpark and stuff like that, which is another way. Again, it depends a little bit on your organization, their infrastructure, the budget, all that kind of thing. At my current company, we do not use that. We use Google Cloud. We have a data warehouse set up that seems to be working for us right now. Maybe in the future we might change, but it's all going to depend again on the organization, the maturity of the organization, and you're like you said, you're going to learn on the job. It's most important that you come in being open and excited to learn, not being expected to know everything. So.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think it's so important, definitely, to be adaptable in those early positions. And then we're just looking at our Q&A here. We have a couple of questions that came in. Our first one here was specifically for JP about how to make the most of an infrastructure, a data structure, oh my gosh, a data center infrastructure engineering internship. But then also, I think if we want to open it up to anyone else, maybe from your point of view, if you've ever worked with an intern, what made them stand out as someone making the most of their internship? But JP, if you want to start there.
Yeah, at Amazon, we try to give them projects that they'll be able to see through in a 12-week period. But I will say that when I was there, it was the first year they were doing that internship, and I was very much a guinea pig. So I think this is probably true for any internship, but it is just that like the same thing we've been saying is the curiosity and the asking people questions. I was also an intern during COVID, so there was like no one in the office, so I felt weird doing it, but I was just like slacking people, just what can I help you with? What are you working on? So I don't necessarily think that every internship is gonna give you the opportunity to solve a problem that company is facing, or even give this big presentable result. But just being someone that they can see kind of growing in that role is what they're looking for, right? Like if they want to give you a return offer, it's going to be because they think you could be successful there. It doesn't necessarily mean that you've already been successful there.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think it's something that Taryn has also kind of talked about, like being curious, and that totally applies in the workspace as an engineer or as an intern, excuse me. And Colin has also kind of talked about like engaging with as many people across the company as possible. So I think that that's definitely great advice. Next, we're going to move on to a question that is directed to Taryn. But once again, anyone is welcome to answer. This says, Taryn mentioned reaching out to adjunct professors who teach special topics, for instance, to work on projects with them. Would that, for example, apply to working on master's projects focused on a particular topic that may not be available here at Lehigh? So I think just what do you make kind of any experience? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, not to, sound like a broken record, but this is what we've all been saying, right? Is it doesn't necessarily have to be like something at Lehigh's campus. It doesn't have to be, part of your schoolwork. It can be outside. If you want to, I love seeing people being entrepreneurial. We've talked about special projects. I think anything you can get exposure to, anyone you can meet. Um, the really important things, looking back is not only your network, well, definitely your network at Lehigh. The people that you're graduating with are all going places. You're all going to end up, doing something really valuable with your work. And it's so important to know and be around those individuals and keep them, in your network and communicating years to come. But it doesn't also just have to be Lehigh. It can be anyone that you're exposed to. It can be any projects that you get yourself involved in. Just again, keep getting yourself out there and ask questions has been probably the theme of what we've all been saying here. It's learn, always be a learner, a lifelong learner, I think is one of the other things we've all been taught throughout our career.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sharon. And then looking at our next question here in the Q&A, it's someone asking for our coders here and our software engineers, how would you propose to a student learning the design and the conceptual part of coding as opposed to, like we were saying with AI, just writing the code? How would you say to really focus in on the conceptual part?
Yeah, for me at least, there are a bunch. Now it's a little bit more educational, a little bit less hands-on. There's a lot of different kind of design frameworks that are in like textbooks and stuff like that, um, that you can use as a baseline. But what you'll see, there are a lot of kind of patterns that apply to a bunch of different problems. And so once you kind of slowly start to understand, one of the like very well-known textbooks is called The Gang of Four, which has a bunch of design principles that are applied to a bunch of different types of problems you'll see commonly in software. And so kind of understanding those patterns and then seeing how they apply to different problems is very important. And then I think one of the most important things is understanding trade-offs. So I'm sure as you work on projects in your classes at Lehigh, but it becomes very apparent once you work on these much larger projects in industry that there's really not going to be like a perfect solution for the problems that you're solving. And so you're going to end up needing to make decisions that or trade-offs that are going to make one thing better, but make something else worse, or different problems that you're going to have to decide are not as important. So you're not going to prioritize solving them. And so working through either projects yourself or different, I know there's a ton of like system design interview practice on like YouTube and stuff like that, which is super helpful as well because they kind of provide a nice framework for these very large problems that enterprises solve. Um, can provide you a lot of experience kind of becoming familiar with trade-offs and design principles and stuff like that.
Something I think I want to add from like a data science perspective, like it's not you can't just necessarily, let's say you're working on a problem for, let's say you're going to do a forecasting exercise, and maybe your manager asks you how many in the next 12 months, how many units of this product are we going to sell? And you have to use historical data to kind of scope out your problem. There are a lot of steps you need to take in terms of understanding, how are you going to handle missing values in the data? Just doing an exploratory data analysis. Are you going to standardize or normalize any values? I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done up front and really engaging with the data before you even get to like the modeling part, which is going to be the heaviest, the most code heavy part. And once you get the data in a good spot, which is going to look different for every situation. There's not like a one size fits all, workflow that I always follow. It depends on the algorithm that I'm going to use. Do I have to treat the data a certain way? Do I have to reduce the dimensionality? Do I have to do all kinds of different things to make the problem work? So I think that AI can really help us to understand, speed up maybe the workflow in each of those steps. But I think you really need to understand conceptually why each of those steps exists, and what could happen if you don't include them.
I'll also add one of the big parts of my practice is also data governance. And with the rise of AI, data governance has become so critical to all of this. And that's it triggered, Melissa, when you were saying that, like missing values and things like that. Um, One of the biggest things is just like data readiness for AI. So if that's something that's intriguing to people, between data governance, AI governance, cybersecurity, AI security, I will, no pun intended, those are job securing security areas because they're becoming so important. If you have bad data, you can't get good insights out of AI or your code. And so data quality, data retention have all become like huge aspects of what organizations are working on as a readiness aspect to implementing AI.
Thank you guys all for sharing. We have several questions in the chat that just have to do with more specific skills. So looking, more with software engineering, we have some students asking about specific tech stack or skills that tech companies are looking for. We have some questions about certain minors that, maybe look better than others. And just in general, what kinds of things like really stand out on a resume. And so I think kind of getting a little bit of everyone's perspective would be really helpful on in each of their areas, like what works best.
I can start real quick on the kind of tech stack for software engineering interviews. Like I was saying earlier, I think depth in like one specific stack is more important than necessarily like knowing everything. Obviously, there's some languages that are gonna be more popular than others. Like knowing Python, like if you're gonna pick one, is probably a good one to know pretty well. That's pretty much used in every type of software engineering. But making sure that you understand kind of how the underlying system works, because like concurrency is going to work similarly across a bunch of different languages, memory management or other uh, problems like interfaces or abstractions and things like that are all going to work very similarly in a bunch of different languages. So if you just understand the concept, it's very easy to learn and apply it in other languages. So as long as you just have one stack that you're very familiar with and you're able to kind of show what you know with that in an interview, you should be in a really good spot. And in terms of minors, I used a minor kind of as a way to explore things that weren't necessarily relevant um, to my career to learn more. My logic was I was paying the same amount whether I took 14 credits or 18 credits, so might as well grab a minor. So I ended up getting a minor in real estate just because I thought it was cool. And so I think it's a great opportunity to kind of get a traditional education in something maybe you're just passionate or want to learn more about. So I thought it was a great opportunity to do something um, like real estate, or a couple of my friends did it in a language because that was what they were interested in. But it's a good opportunity just to learn more.
Yeah, that's great, Alex. Thank you so much. And to be IBE and also get a minor, it sounds like you really took advantage of every opportunity. JP, did you want to jump in on this question there?
Yeah, first off, I didn't even know there was a real estate minor at Lehigh. That's awesome. Just on like the topic of interviews themselves, I think that I wanted to give some information on kind of how to present yourself. Um, I don't know if everyone's heard of the now I'm blanking on it. The star format of answering questions in interviews. Um, we really interviewers want to hear about you as the candidate. Not necessarily like we in my capstone team did this. We want to know about you, and we want you to give yourself credit, which I know something that a lot of us are kind of bad at sometimes. But hyping yourself up is the whole point, right? And then also as far as putting things on resumes. A lot of those I guess soft skills or outside of the academic space experiences you've had kind of make us curious when we're reading a resume. If you're applying to an internship that has absolutely nothing to do with what's on your resume, but it's like you were on a sport or you were in on the formula team, right? Like those you may not be going into an automotive industry, but I'm sure you had to solve problems on the Formula team, or the aerospace. Like there's so many clubs at Lehigh, all these different things. So those experiences are valid, even if you don't think that necessarily gets you the experience recognized for that specific role. So in terms of resumes, just put all your experiences on there, and in terms of interviews, hype yourself up. Kind of come into the interview with experience or ideas of what you have done really well in the past. Because that's what you're going to try to talk about.
To your point, JP, anything that you can put on there that they can ask you questions about, down to like where you grew up, what and think, because you never know what that person is actually interested in too, and you may connect over something completely random. And I don't know that I said this earlier, but maybe alluded to it. Like people want to work with who they like. And so if you have something in common with someone, they're going to be far more interested in working with you every day than just looking at who has the highest GPA. So, the more, to your point, the more you can put on there, the more like hooks you could potentially have into finding some common ground with someone who you're interviewing with.
I just have one last thing to say about resumes, because one thing that I feel like I've noticed when interviewing a lot of resumes is having an objective statement. I feel like sometimes when I'm getting sent a lot of resumes, it really helps me to understand, especially if you are a candidate with, let's say, a non-traditional background, or you come from a different angle, or something like that. Having that objective statement of who you are, what you want, what value you think you're going to provide, is really, really helpful for a hiring manager. So,
Yeah, thank you so much, Melissa. And then we just have one last question here from Abigail about grappling with the environmental impact of AI. Taryn, if you want to talk about that for us, and then we'll have Logan close us out.
Sure. Yeah, this is a hard one, right? We're talking about how great AI can be for so many reasons, but there are definitely the cons that come around along with that, and the environment is one of those things. For my work, where we're doing AI governance work with organizations, we're actually helping companies to create the right compliance and risk management processes to evaluate the use of AI through that lens, among many. So, if a company, for example, is going to use a particular vendor or technology to perform certain AI tasks, we may develop some sort of questionnaire onboarding process for that, to ask various questions, anywhere from safety and security measures through to the environmental impact. And the hope is that many companies are making strong decisions that take that into account, and that's part of their decision-making process and what they're considering. But I think it was JP who mentioned earlier, like this is going to open up different avenues for problem solving. And so I think it's an active issue that many people have on their mind. And I think we're going to see potentially new creative solutions as to how to overcome that over time. But it certainly is an impact. And I don't think we should downplay that for sure.
Yeah, definitely important to kind of look at all sides of that. Does anyone else want to add anything on that before we move on to the last question? Okay. I had a question for you guys, actually. Just kind of looking forward for everyone in watching today. What types of outreach are you most likely to respond to when students reach out? I think that I've always learned that, try to go to the Career Center to get a gauge of, the industry as much as you can. But there is that certain aspect of connecting with someone in industry that is really, really important. And when you guys are really busy, and getting LinkedIn messages all the time, what types of outreach are you most likely to respond to, and what do you hope that students come to you with?
I can kick that off. I personally prefer email. It's, how do you get my email? I kind of distribute it amongst some of the professors, and I hope that they then distribute it amongst their students. Dave Angstadt, Hannah Daly, Terry Hart. I know these are all Meckies. But yeah, if a student's willing to reach out, and I also do look at my LinkedIn. It's just not on a daily basis. It's more on like a weekly basis. But yeah, any sort of communication. I really appreciate to hear and try to be as helpful as possible. So, but yeah, for me, it's definitely email.
I would say follow up. I read emails or looked at LinkedIn and then get sidetracked with something and then forget to go back. So I'm not trying to ignore someone. It's just life gets crazy. I'm not saying send like 15 messages unanswered, but maybe one more to follow up and say, hey, just checking in again. Also take advantage of in-person opportunities for networking. I just attended our like Lehigh Loft watching party here in DC back in November. There's actually a woman on my team. She played volleyball at Lafayette, and we went with our significant others and kind of heckled each other the whole time. So it was pretty fun. But you can really meet people there, like of all ages from Lehigh, and tap into that network, and you'll get someone's attention because they're there and dedicating their time to some sort of in-person networking event. So I would tap into any of those that are in cities near you, especially once you're graduated and not just in Bethlehem.
Another tip I would have is to really reach out, conduct those informational interviews with people who either have interesting jobs to you or work in industries or companies that interest you. I think that as someone being on the receiving end of a lot of communications, it's always nice to have that relationship, or I should say, have the first point of contact not be, I need a job. I think that kind of, if you're reaching out and that's kind of like the first thing, it feels a little bit more transactional. I think reaching out, asking, understand about this person's job, their company, et cetera, whatever might have interested you, I think goes a long way in really making a genuine relationship.
And I just want to add in, when you're in college, your .edu email is super powerful at Cisco, and I'm sure many other companies. We have an email filter. So if you send me an email from a Gmail account, I'll never see it. But all .edu emails get through. And so definitely take advantage of that. It also really works well for any um, like if you're emailing, like just cold emailing someone, because it's an automatic um kind of reputation check that you are who you say you are, because .edu emails are only available to college and academia. So that's a really strong resource. And then also, if you're adding people on LinkedIn, always add a message. Don't just blindly add people. It's really hard for me to just accept a cold network connect on LinkedIn if someone doesn't add a message. So that really helps as well.
I think for the LinkedIn messages, like I'll never ignore a LinkedIn message. I'll look at them, but there's a lot of LinkedIn messages you get that mean nothing. Tell me you're from Lehigh, and I'll always answer you. I might need to follow up, just like Taryn said, and don't be afraid to follow up. Even if it says I read it, I opened it, I got a message from a teammate at work. I forgot about you. I'm sorry, but I'll never ignore a LinkedIn message. I'll always come back to it. That's probably where I get the least spam. So if you say you're from Lehigh, I'll make a mental note of you, probably a note of you somewhere else in my laptop as well, and I'll try to get back to you. And if you have real questions for me that are going further than just what a LinkedIn conversation should really be, I'll set up a call with you. Like I'm happy to talk to anyone from Lehigh. Um, I know that we were all students not that long ago, and an actual information session from an alum was the most beneficial thing in the world and the most personal, and just it felt good, right? Like it really it got you somewhere. So
Sorry, go ahead, Logan.
I was just gonna close this out and say, just want to be cautious of our time. We're a little over 8:30. JP's tuning in wherever he's at, it's 1:30 in the morning. So definitely want to get him to bed soon. We're very, very grateful for all of our alumni that have joined today. Your commitment to the Lehigh students is beyond, we're beyond grateful. And there are plenty of other people just like these alumni that are here today, and they're willing to connect. You just have to be willing to shoot your shot. So, yeah.
Thank you, everyone. It was so nice to have you with us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Very nice
thank you
meeting you all.
guys.
Yep, thank you guys so much.
All right. I think we are set, everyone. You are free to log off, and I will close this out. We just wanted to say a final thank you. Logan, Piper, you guys did a great job, and alumni, as always, fabulous. Thank you so much. You were great.
You guys.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Bye.
Have a good night.
Thank y'all.
Have a good morning, JP.
Yeah. Bye, everybody. Take
Bye.
care.